I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Welcome back to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my good buddy, Chief John Salka. And John, I guess another topic for this one. How about we do this? How about we talk about the firehouse kitchen table? And you and I, we've had so many conversations about sitting around having coffee, and whether we were talking tactics or visiting with the guys or just the rallying point in the firehouse, not to be confused with like the watch desk in Chicago or the FDNY, where certain pertinent parts of information are passed. But we're talking about the kitchen table in the firehouse. And buddy, I mean, two things. One is, I think those conversations are the ones that I know I've been part of or been able to just sit back and listen to, have actually helped mold my career in a way, and so many lessons and so many experiences. I think it plays such an important role. I know at FDIC on the big stage, one of the props they have up there is the kitchen table because of the importance. I know I've done forwards for cookbooks where they have recipes in, or firehouse, especially firehouse cookbooks, 2 or 3 of those, where I've written about just how important sharing the meal is. First off, when you sit down with your family, good things happen at the dinner table, and you talk and you get to check in and catch up with people, and the whole meal thing. But I mean, the lessons. I mean, talk about that for a second. How important that was to you in your career.
I'm listening to you talk about the kitchen table and all the discussions, and there's that old saying about all the world's problems get solved at the kitchen table, right? And we do. Sometimes national stories come up, and presidential elections, and local issues, and contracts and payments, and the union, and God knows what all the different topics are. But diversity. I mean, not the topic of diversity, but the topics are so diverse that we could talk all day long about the stuff that gets discussed at the kitchen table, some great ideas. And I would venture to say some contract ideas, some union ideas probably were born at a kitchen table in a firehouse somewhere, where a union guy said, you know what, that's a great idea. Let me take that back to the office or whatever. Or maybe the negotiating committee will talk about that. Sometimes even, I know certainly in my career as a captain and a battalion chief, and maybe to a lesser degree as a lieutenant, but I know a lot of times company policy and company issues and things of that nature that are happening and developing. Sometimes either you're listening in on a conversation at the kitchen table, or maybe you're partaking in a conversation at the kitchen table. Sometimes the answer arrives. Sometimes the solution to a problem really does come from the kitchen table. And sometimes it's like, hey, Cap, did you guys ever think about? And I'm like, holy crap, Billy, that's a good idea. No, I don't think we did think about that. Let me go talk to the other guys about that. And all of a sudden, you got a solution about the HERS tool, or about who carries the tool, or who's going to be overtime standby. Or again, the issue doesn't matter. The point is, every topic is open, and sometimes the solution comes from an unexpected location. A guy with 3 years sitting in the corner has been listening for 3 years, and suddenly he says his first words at the dining room table or the kitchen table, and they're the solution to a problem or the answer to a question.
Oh God, it just, like you said, whether you're a firefighter, lieutenant, a captain, or a chief, or whatever, having that cup of coffee or that dinner, or just sitting at the table getting caught up. You don't even have to do. Some guys study. They get the books out. They do maybe group studies there, or they just sit down and bone up on a couple things. Can you remember? Let's go back in time, and I want to compare this to. Can you remember the first time? When you're brand new, we'll just take the FDO. We'll talk about the volley kitchens in a little bit here, but let's talk about you one of the first couple firehouse kitchen tables in the FDNY, walking in there and seeing some of those people. John, I remember, and I'll compare it to this. I remember when I moved up to playing major level softball, and me and me and my buddy Timmy, we walked in to this restaurant, and as we're walking in, we can look through the windows, and we saw sitting all around this this big set of tables were some of the best players in the country. And Timmy looked, he goes, we both stopped and we looked, and he looked at me, he goes, that's Wally Filkins and Randy Filkins and Keith Filkins, and that's Johnny Kelleher, and that's Jack Kelly, and that's Larry Kelly, and I'm like, holy crap. And we both looked at each other like, what the hell are we doing here? And we sat in there, and I remember walking into a couple firehouses and looking around and going, oh my God, look at some of the people that were sitting there, like Eddie Enright, some of my idols. I just sat back. I was kind of stunned. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh my God. And then when they started talking, John, go back in time. We talked about when Joey D does the memorial symposium and to honor our little Joey D, and the Friday night story time with all the chiefs. And I'm like, God, we should be videotaping this, Same thing at the kitchen table. What was it like for you? I know what it was like for me. I was awestruck sometimes to sit down and just go, I can't believe I'm having coffee with these guys, It
was great. And I can only say it was great now in retrospect, because now we've come so far and we've developed ourselves, into the people we are, and we have confidence and we are where we are. But when it was happening, you were the new guy. You were the new probie, or maybe even a new lieutenant. You had years on the job already. Now you're a boss, but you're still the brand new lieutenant. And you walk in somewhere, and all of a sudden you see this captain sitting there of this truck who's got like 30 years on the job, and this lieutenant who's got 25 years that you're relieving. And you're the lieutenant with 6 months on the job, 6 months in rank, and you're feeling totally unprepared. You're feeling totally unqualified at this point. And you must admit, and I know for sure, sometimes people's reputations, obviously people's reputations precede them, but sometimes they're not true.
Right.
Sometimes you hear a lot about Tom Brennan, or you hear a lot about, so many guys that we've known, right? Kilka was one of the very well-known deputy chiefs in the job when I was a young officer. Tom Kennedy, right? I was afraid to say the name Tom Kennedy, never mind being in the same room with him. And then you sit down at a change of shift or something, and all of a sudden this guy's like, hey, how you doing? Good. And I'm like, I ended up, believe it or not, he ended up being a mentor. He ended up being the official program. In other words, I was a brand new battalion chief, and I rode with Tom Kennedy for a couple of shifts in the 16th Battalion. And it was like, oh my God, And I remember covering and then relieving him, and he was relieving me, doing a vacation somewhere. And I'm saying to myself, I can't believe I'm relieving Tom Kennedy. Tom Kennedy was in this seat. Now I'm in this seat. He went home, and I'm riding in the same battalion now. And it turns out most of them are what? And we say it all the time. Most of them are just like us. Most of the folks you meet, even the greats, the guys that worked with Vinnie Dunn, the guys that worked with John Mittendorf, the guys that worked with all the big names that we know of around the country, everybody will tell you, he was just a regular guy, a regular Joe with a cup of coffee in the kitchen,
Oh, exactly. And it's just, and I'm thinking of the conversation you're talking about that, and sitting down with, and I've mentioned Bill Allen, but some of the chiefs I sat down with, and look, I can be a tough guy when I need to, but when you're talking like some of your fire service idols, and you don't want to say the wrong thing, you don't want to, God, I don't want to look like a dumbass and all this stuff, and then like you said, you realize, hey, they're just like us, the good
just
mentors,
like us, but better.
But they had this way of breaking down the nervousness barriers, right? The good ones, don't they do that? They make you feel like you mean something, like you're important to them, like it should be. And I guess it even made me admire them even that much more, to sit down, you always hear Tom Freeman was always that way. Hey, come on by the coffee pot. That he used to say, that was his message. Coffee pot's always on, because how about this? When you walk in as a chief, as a young firefighter, to be awestruck in the lessons learned at the kitchen table, listening to the old guys talk about tactics and strategy and fires and jobs and leadership and just sometimes just conversations. Hell, I learned how to be a better dad, how to be a better father by listening to some of the guys talk about their kids and what they're doing with their families and their wives and stuff. And, like I said, a lot of it made me even a better person. But you know this, John, you walked into a firehouse, you walk in, chief's in the house, officer on deck, whatever. And by the time you get to the kitchen, there's a cup of coffee on the table, on the kitchen table. And that means one of two things. Either the guys want to sit down and shoot the bull with you, or there's an issue, right? And it was always that, okay, there's the coffee. Let's see where this goes. And sometimes it's just, I guess they just wanted to sit around and, talk tactics or whatever. But like you said, sometimes, like you said, the solution to a problem or situation, right there before you know it, like Tom Freeman used to say, hey, let's sit down. Come on, sit down at the kitchen table. Let's solve all the problems in the world of the fire service, and the things you're able to talk about. And I just think there's an impromptu, more relaxed atmosphere when you can sit at the kitchen table and converse.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, there's some good things about that, and there's some bad things about that. And what happens is everybody goes to the kitchen, and it's like the recorders are turned off. It's like, you can say anything you want now because we're in the kitchen, and you really can. And I've said this 100 times. If they filmed the morning shift change in the kitchen and put it on TV, well, if you didn't film it, if you played it live, that would be the most popular and funniest stuff on TV. We'd all be in jail as well, because the stuff we say is not acceptable, and it's not, However, having said that, here's my point. Some of the stuff that's said in the kitchen, sometimes, and I remember a couple of times being in the kitchen as an officer at lunch, 6, 8, 10, 12 guys, right? And you're sitting there talking to the guy opposite you or the guy next to you, and there's some other conversations going on, and then you hear something. Out of the corner of my eye, I see two guys talking, and I hear something that I didn't know, meaning somebody did something, somebody lost something, somebody said something, somebody did something they shouldn't have done. All of a sudden, guess what? Now I accidentally found out about something that I probably wasn't meant to know, but now I do know. So sometimes sitting in the kitchen, the kitchen isn't always one big circus where everybody's in one conversation. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 different things going on at the kitchen table, and you and 2 guys are talking about something down here, and a couple other guys are talking about something over there. And sometimes you hear something that you wish you didn't hear. Sometimes you hear something you say, holy crap, am I glad I heard that? You don't say anything, but later on when you're talking to the captain, when he comes in, you said, hey, listen, I don't know if you know what's going on, but I heard today at lunch that this and this and this. Really? I said, yes, I did. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't make any acknowledgement that I heard it, but I think it's something we got to look into. And sometimes it turned out to be a good thing that I accidentally heard it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was deliberate that they said it for me to hear it, but you know what? That happens too. And I know that happens because I know a couple of times firemen said, oh yeah, well, we'll throw it around on the kitchen table. And when the boss hears it, maybe he'll do something with it. You know what I'm saying? So there's some underlying stuff going on the kitchen table too as well. It's not always just on the surface, the funny stuff happening. Sometimes there's some planned stuff going on,
Exactly. And kind of a little motive behind everything. But you're right. Some of the stuff you hear, and you and I've said this about some of the officers that they sew their asses to the chairs and they're behind their desk, and they never come down for a cup of coffee. Some of them are intimidated, maybe because the guys got a little loud about a topic. And first of all, if you're wearing your feelings on your shirt sleeve in the fire service, you stood in the wrong line. If you get your feelings hurt, easy, you need to sit down. And I'm not talking about threats and nasty shit. I'm talking about, what, you need to be an adult, 3 times 7, be a good, big boy, big girl, and pay attention to what's going on. But, again, don't be all kind of hurt feelings in that when you hear things. And I think sometimes guys, John, they got into maybe the last conversation got a little heated or, a little more serious than they wanted to. And then maybe 2 or 3 of those in a row, now they start to avoid the kitchen, and I think that can be a bad thing too, because now all of a sudden that chain, that link in that chain is cut, and you're only seeing the guys at training, at roll call, on a rig, rig or whatever. But I think there's things like you said that come up, certain topics. It gives you an opportunity Yes, they can be bad. Sometimes you wish you didn't hear it, but sometimes, like you said, it gives you opportunity to fix something right then and there before it gets all blown out of proportion or festers into something that it's not, needs to be. You can kill off a lot of the BS, right?
Yep. And I know for sure, because I did it a couple of times. A couple of times stuff came up, issues came up, maybe job-wide issues, not really disciplinary issue, operational issues, or maybe just issues about, gee, really, we got to start doing that now, or whatever it is, right? And a couple of times I used the kitchen table as the place to sort of lay the law down and say, hey, fellas, listen, just to let you know. And there we are eating our steak sandwiches. And it was a little bit more of a casual, easygoing discussion than maybe a roll call about, hey, listen, guys, effective immediately, new chief of department. He's been around to a couple of firehouses, proper uniforms all the time, no more golf shirts, button-down shirts only, no more white socks. Listen, it's a change, but get used to it. Now, if you're doing it at a roll call, it's one thing. If you start talking about the kitchen table sometimes it's more sellable. Sometimes it's more plausible when it's a conversation at lunch rather than maybe a roll call, discussion.
Hell, just tell someone to put their uniform shirt on over their T-shirt at the kitchen table. Hey, make sure we get ready to go. Put your shirt back on. Oh, gotcha, cat. Sometimes I think when you're a little bit more relaxed, it gives you an avenue to slip a few things in there. I mean, the mentoring that goes on at the kitchen table. I know for me, John, the things I learned in the Chicago firehouses I hung out with Ray Hoff and Eddie Enright, Bobby McKee, and oh my God, people like that. And God, I heard things, good stuff, things that changed how I acted, how I did things. I watched people, how they handle themselves, how they handle conversations, how they handle controversy. How about this? How many times have you sat down and just talk tactics and strategy? Remember we talked about you throw a magazine on the cover on the counter on the table with a cover on it. Cover, a picture on the cover. And you do like an hour's worth of tactics and strategy. Terry McGrath came by, our good buddy Terry from Louisville, came by a Trophy Club when I was there as interim. And when he came by, we were sitting at the kitchen table with the guys talking tactics and strategy. And he goes, God, I love seeing you do that. I have so much fun when we sit down and talk tactics. And you look like you're having so much fun. And the guys are engaged. We're talking, flows and stretching lines and searches and things. And I mean, some of my best tactics and strategy conversations were at the kitchen table, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they're born in different places. Like you said, it could be a cover of a magazine. Somebody throws that on a table or somebody brings it in. Could be a newspaper from a job, maybe somewhere else the day before. Somebody's got the newspaper. Holy cow, look what they had over next door, or in the other battalion. Or it could be your own job. You get a job at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. Get back, clean everything up, saws are back in service. One guy taps out, everybody's cleaned and back in service. All of a sudden, lunchtime. Now you're sitting down for lunch, and it's the first meal after the job. And all of a sudden, guys start talking. Hey, Chief, did you make it up to the roof for that job? No, I did not. What's going on? Well, I was up there, and all of a sudden, now you're getting a story about, the first new truck, and he had a little trouble with the saw, but luckily I had mine up there, and we ended up getting together, and we got that hole cut really quick, and you practically have to you have to tell them to stop talking. We got to start eating now. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's all excited about what they did. And it's just that venue. It's that table. The table just makes you talk, Well,
and there's been history made at the table. When we first started doing Saving Our Own, you were first doing Get Out Alive. One of the challenges I had, John, was going to teach somewhere and everybody had stairs. You could do a stair rescue. A lot of places had a window. You could do this, you could do the ladder bail, the rope slide. You could do the second floor rescue, but not too many people had a hatch to do the Nance drill or the window and the dimensions to do the Mark Langford, the Denver rescue. And I remember sitting down. You remember Seth Dale, right? He's lieutenant on BC lieutenant. God, I forget where he's at right now, rank wise in Darien Order. Seth's a great guy. I apologize, Seth. I drew a blank right there, but Seth was, one of our carpenters. And I remember I still have it in my drawer right next to my desk. We sat down and I said, I need a prop. I need you to build me a prop. What do you think? And I sat down and on a freaking napkin at the kitchen table, we drew what became the first Saving Our Own prop with the ability to do the Nance drill, the stairs drill, the window rescue, the rope slide, the ladder bail, the wall breach, the Denver Rescue, everything all in one. You can have a couple things going on at the same time on a freaking napkin at the kitchen table. But I wanted you to comment on something, that one of my guys, when my guys went and rode out there on duty, at, legal, as I say, legal, insured, and all that stuff. When the battalion chiefs went to ride out with the new chief's aides from Louisville, I remember one of them come back and going, boss, we didn't sit down and have supper till 9:30 at night because the truck was on a second alarm. And I said, yeah, that's because, and that I don't know if it's in every firehouse out of hundreds of firehouses there, several hundred, but I know how it worked in the 18th Battalion. I knew how it worked at a couple of places I rode in Chicago. You didn't sit down to have the meal unless everybody was there. You sat down as a family. And again, I've heard you say it, they put, once they say chow's on and everybody sits down, bing, they catch a call, it's all done. But how important, they did that for a reason, right? They did that for, you didn't sit down unless everybody was there to sit down and have the dinner or lunch.
Yeah. And you know what? And that is just one amongst many, many little firehouse traditions, and most of them being, kitchen table traditions, like, and that's one of them. Everybody's got to be in. If the battalion is picked up another run on the way back, then the engine and truck sit there and they keep everything hot and they wait. We're going to eat? Yeah, battalion's on the way back now. And then the battalion backs in, good, chow's on. Or before the battalion gets back, the engine goes out on an ERS or a medical call. Now the battalion gets back, now we're waiting for the engine to get back. And sometimes it takes longer than other times. Another one is like where I used to be the captain in 48 Engine. There's no TV. There's no TV in the dining room. You're at the kitchen table to talk. There's no TV. There's no radio. There's no nothing in there. The kitchen table is a place where people eat and where people talk and where people, discuss things. And that's another tradition there. Some places have a TV in the dining room, and that's just fine. But everybody's got their little specialties, their little ways that they do things, and a lot of them are circled around the fact that that's really the social core of the firehouse. Yeah, there's discussions going on in lots of places, but if you want to throw something out there and get the most input from the guys and the gals in the firehouse, the kitchen.
And that's where we do roll calls sometimes instead of out on the floor. Maybe they meet up. We've talked about certain guys. Hey, everybody get back here. We're gonna do a roll call in the kitchen or at the kitchen table, or we're gonna come back when we're done checking the rigs and everything ready to do part 2 of the roll call and finish up. We talked about our training and stuff like that. But John, there's a challenge out there. A lot of the new guys and gals, we've seen this in a lot of firehouses, not all of them, but a lot of them, they started bringing in their own meals, their own stuff, and eating when they wanted to. And I've been to places where I'm like, there's a guy over there sitting eating his Subway sandwich, and then a little bit later, this guy opens up his, and I'm like, God, and it's almost, I've been there at class, and I've sat down with like 2 guys, and everybody else is just kind of off doing their own thing. And I think I said it when we start off, when you don't sit down as a family at home and have a meal once in a while, I know everybody's got a lot of stuff going on. You know what? If you bring all your food in from home, whatever, that's fine. But you should sit down and plan the meal time, whether you actually make something or don't. I think it's important to sit down together. I cooked for years. I cooked for 9 years for 10 to 15 guys. And I loved it. I loved, I had, grandparents that taught me how to cook and all that different stuff. But I just thought it was just such a great rallying point. But I think some of the young guys and gals need to hear that, if you're not going to cook a meal and you decide to bring everything in, at least sit down, right? And break bread together and talk and visit. And this is your chance you get to talk with, how's your kid doing with soccer or softball, or how they do with school, or how's that new truck, or how's that new baby, and how's your husband do this, your wife, whatever. I just, your thoughts on that, John, on the message we should send to the new guys and gals that, it may not seem like a big deal to you, but it's one of those things that really is when it comes to putting all the pieces together in the firehouse.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing that the kitchen table I find interesting is that the ranks get a little blurry at the kitchen table. You might have a captain sitting there with a couple of firefighters, maybe the chief's at the end of the table with the aide or by himself, and everybody's having lunch and maybe talking amongst themselves or even collectively. And sometimes things are said. Sometimes some kidding around is done. Sometimes some things are said that you get a little bit more freedom to say at the kitchen table, in the kitchen, amongst each other, that you wouldn't say on the fireground or in the car or at a training or even out at the scene somewhere, where things are a little bit more, you know, a little bit more legit. Everybody's in there playing their official roles. Kitchen table, everything gets a little blurry, and there's a little bit more room for kidding around and for tossing jokes and for saying, yeah, like the captain yesterday when he whatever he did that was funny, and the captain would laugh. He wouldn't be like, hey, I'm not. So I think everybody lets their guard down a little bit, and ranks get blurred a little bit. And I think that's another reason the kitchen table is a great place to be, because sometimes stuff is said that wouldn't be said really anywhere else in a firehouse or anywhere else on duty. Maybe not even at a company party. That's how unique the kitchen table atmosphere is.
Well, and I see that same thing, John, in the volunteer firehouses, that it's the rallying point, the kitchen, where everybody goes grab a cup of coffee, grab a soda or whatever, or, same. I mean, they have their meeting rooms and that, but a lot of volunteer departments, the couple I belong to, and then the ones I've been at, like you're chief of your department now, but some of the places we visit, that's always been like, you walk in, that's one of the first places you go. And during breaks, during class, you're teaching, everybody's, hanging out in the kitchen, talking and else. Like I said, it helped mold my career. Some of my best and most valued experiences were gained at the kitchen table. Like I said earlier, I have no problem saying it changed how I was as a father, as a husband, as an officer. I learned things about parents and about being a soulmate and about everything. And that now all the things I gathered and gained from taking care of the rigs and all the mentoring that went on was incredible.
And I'll tell you what, if you ever got a phone number for a contractor or a guy that could do fences, or the fireman from another house that does cinder blocks, and you probably got it at the kitchen table. Those discussions come up at the kitchen table too while you're eating lunch. Hey, Billy, you do construction. You know anybody that does concrete? Yeah. My brother-in-law does concrete. He's in 92 engine. Oh, give me his number. I got to put a pad out in the back of the house for, Oh, yeah, sure. So that's another thing. Here's an interesting thing. Like in my volunteer firehouse, we don't have a kitchen table because we have a kitchen, but there's no table in there. We don't eat meals. It's a volunteer firehouse. We got a meeting room that's empty. We have a training room upstairs with some couches and stuff like that. But you know what they did recently in the past year? They put a kitchen table on the apparatus floor. The back of the apparatus floor had a big open spot. The guys built a big, beautiful, heavy wooden table, put some chairs around it. And I know there's guys out there that get all upset about the diesel fumes and about, being out there with the rigs and stuff like that. But it's a small volunteer fire department. They're not doing a lot of runs. It's not like there's any blue smoke hanging in the air all day long. But I must tell you, that apparatus floor table is almost the same table that's in the kitchen in 48 engine. It's almost got the same features to it. Everybody comes in and they walk right back there first. And guys are sitting back there eating lunch maybe during the day. Maybe the back door and the front door are open. Guys wander in and wander out. And a lot of those same conversations happen. And I know career departments do that as well. I remember the Bridgeport Fire Department in Connecticut. I stopped there a couple of times. And Gary Baker, a good friend of mine, was an officer there. And a lot of those places had tables out on the apparatus floor with 4 or 5 chairs. That guys, some places actually ate their meals out there. Other places, just had a, sit out there to smoke a cigarette or a cigar or something,
Well, so like I said, as we wrap things up here, doesn't matter, volunteer career, it's a great rallying point. John, if you summarize your thoughts, in a sentence or two here on what we talked about. We're talking about the lessons, learned, lessons from the firehouse kitchen table, on the importance of that rallying point.
The kitchen table is a great place. The kitchen in general, kitchen table specifically, is a great place to open up. Everybody's, like I said, everybody's a little bit at ease there. You can ask questions, maybe things you wouldn't talk about somewhere else. So don't ever miss an opportunity. I must tell you, when I look at pictures of the firehouse, I look at the picture of the kitchen table at 48 and 45 and 58 and a 1/8. That's the room I miss. That's the room I miss sitting in. Used to play dice with the guys once in a while. Let's hang around an hour after the meal with coffee and talk about a bunch of stuff. So don't ever miss an opportunity. Don't be in such a rush that you grab a cup of coffee and run right out, or don't come in the morning. Always take the time to reset yourself and stop the kitchen table at a shift change, or when guys are hanging around in the volunteer house, and catch up with what's going on. It's invaluable. It's a great place to be, and you pick up a lot of information that you will find nowhere else.
No, it'll change your career. It did for me. And I value every bit of it. So, hey, buddy, if they want to get a hold of you, shoot your email out there.
Chief John Salka at gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. And John, I always ask you a couple things when we close these shows out. First of all, we want to thank you for joining us again. Keep spreading the word. We're having a ball with these. Hope they've been good for you. But we always close out our shows with asking you to please keep the men and women in armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, once a firefighter, always a firefighter. And that means never forgetting. Thank you. God bless you. And we'll catch you on the next one.